Hey guys, welcome back. It's Maverick here today with another episode of 86. We had a 1 week hiatus last week since we went for a bit of a recap episode. Honestly, I skipped those kind of things because typically we don't really get any new information anyways, and I just can't be bothered with it. Time is valuable, okay? Anyways, continuing the story where we left off, I do believe we are starting the sort of commando mission, right? By the Nordlich's squadron, or basically the 86, right? Where they are essentially dropping behind enemy lines, or at least deep into enemy lines, to take out a railgun? Yeah, I believe it's a railgun, right? Obviously, it's kind of like a suicide mission, but I'm sure they'll be fine. What is interesting to me, though, is if there's going to be a situation where, oh, you destroyed one railgun, there's actually three more, or something of that sort. I do find it to be a common trope within anime, or not just anime, in lots of media as well, right? For instance, hey, you destroyed a Death Star, here's a second one, and something of that sort. But hey, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's get right into the episode. All right, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Morph. I guess a Federacy, eh? I was just wondering, does it make sense that this guy doesn't actually have supreme command of the forces? I mean, they're already here, aren't they? All right. I mean, I already talked about this back in the last episode, right? Episode 17. How, even though they're still trying to push this into like some sort of unfair situation towards the 86 or discrimination and all that, I don't know. To me, I can't really fully justify that line of thinking, considering their capabilities and talents on the battlefield and whatnot. I do actually agree they are the most suitable for this mission. Not to mention, they were given the choice to back out, right? Although obviously their pride doesn't allow them to. See, I would have liked that a little bit more, to be honest, from a storytelling perspective. For the Federacy, for the military brass to actually take advantage of their pride as a Day 86, as their pride as an elite fighting unit, to goad them into taking on this mission, right? I feel like that would have a much better nuance instead of, going through this entire discrimination process as well, sort of like a direct copy of what happened within the Republic. But, hey. So he was kind of looking out for them in his own way, right? I would rather appreciate, this kind of take much more. The fact that they are too well of fighting machines. They're doing too well on the battlefield. So, they get the brunt of the duties. Rather than sort of like framing it into oh, because they're foreign and whatnot, they're monsters, we don't understand them, so they're sent to die, right? Which I think was actually implied within the original like high brass meeting and whatnot, but it's just the fact that since there's so much other context around it, right? The discrimination, the jeering and whatnot of the other soldiers. So it's kind of like framed differently at this point. I mean, I'm sure that they should do everything in their power to ensure the success of the mission, right? This is a do or die situation. Alright, some kind of top tier secret weaponry. Yep, a prototype. I kind of wonder, right? Like, is it some sort of jet transport? I mean, their technology is already on par with, like. Okay. It looks like a B-2 bomber. Oh, okay. That's an interesting concept. That's it. Empire. Cool. So the design of it, I mean, I can't really see the entire thing, but from the outline, the silhouette, it seems to be resemble the B-2 bomber. Um, called sign is Spirit, right? Anyways, the B-2 bomber is a stealth bomber within the United States Air Force. And so what they're implying here is also kind of like it's stealthy, right? I know they of course work on completely different Herself? Oh, yeah, herself. Anyways, as I was saying, so uh, I think it's interesting that it's designed in the shape of the V2, and it's also carrying out a similar purpose, right? Of course, the actual V2 avoids detection by using a mixture of materials, design shapes, and its altitude. Although here they're using the same stealthy concept except by flying low to the ground. Mm. I mean, what else is there to say about it, right? I mean, I don't really want to comment on those kinds of situations. Looking at it in its black form, it is that is absolutely a copy of the B2. It's kind of interesting how they're like a mix of different cultures and technologies. I wouldn't say not one, but certainly the general consensus should be like that. Survive. Live? Uh, okay. Okay. Nice that he mentions those as well. Nice background music here. It's so interesting how they're using conventional, what modern weaponry that we know about, and then they also have like these mechs going on. Launch through catapult rails. Okay. Well, I guess it is an underground facility, right? Gives it more like a secret base kind of feel. Oh, there it is. See, I do kind of wish they could have focused a little bit more on how this is like a large scale operation and not just, them doing what they want without an actual backup or whatnot. But this is actually a true concept because when you fly so close to the ground, radar can't detect you. Yeah, and see, there's a lot of other people who have their lives on the line as well. See, like, I just don't. I really would have enjoyed it a lot more if they instead just looked at this from a much more objective perspective. Like, it's somebody who's happy. I guess secondly, you can't say it's happy, right? But actually, crazy. Alright, see you guys after this. Alright guys, that was episode 18 of 86, and yeah, it pretty much touched on all the points that I did want to touch once again. Obviously, we have some more of the emotional aspects as well, but like, if I'm going to be honest here, I was never that big on the sort of emotional aspects of things. I liked it back in the first season, right, the first part of this, because I feel like they were utilized in a way that wasn't tear-jerking, right, such as how it's portrayed more here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand, right, Frederica is still just a little girl and whatnot, and obviously she would be having these kinds of emotions, going through the same exact situation twice. It's not that I'm not sympathetic towards that, it's just that I don't know, I tend to concentrate on the actual, the actual story at hand, and whatnot, and let's just say that I want to see like the triumph of heroes, right? I want to see them get through this successfully, even through seemingly impossible odds here, right? And yeah, I don't know, man. The funny thing here is that they kind of went back into throughout this entire episode. I mean, they kind of went into what I was talking about back in episode 17, where I expressed my displeasure at how the entire situation was being handled, and the implications that were there. Right. Once again, throughout this second part of the season, the second half of the season, where of the 86 got to the Confederacy, and then they received, various amounts of praise or discrimination and whatnot. And I do feel like, especially in the past few episodes, we've been seeing a stark rise in the sort of negativity stemming from their actual their actual race, their abilities, who they are, right? And this fundamental difference here, rather than what I feel could have been a very nice way to tap into like the other source of conflict here, right? Now, don't get me wrong, sure, I do understand some people saying that this is kind of like a central frame throughout, right? There's sort of racial discrimination or whatnot, stemming from the original republic all the way here to Confederacy, and sure, I get it. Maybe they want to maybe the author does want to build up this sort of setting where the 86 are shunned wherever they go, right? That kind of story, and especially when you consider it's a little bit trying to, I can't help but feel that it's sort of like a parallelism to Jews in our world, right? And how their treatment has evolved throughout history as well. I do like, especially since in within the Republic and whatnot, I've made no secret. I feel like it's a very blunt sort of comparison to Nazi Germany and so on and so forth. I mean, that one is a lot more obvious here, but if you go back and think about like who the Nazis were actually prosecuting, which are Jews, of course, then once again this kind of makes sense here in the greater context, right? However, and I've said this, at length in the past few episodes as well, I would have much preferred if the actual point of conflict in the story here is more so their sort of like pride as soldiers. I'm talking about obviously Shin and the others, the 86, their pride as soldiers and their comfortableness on the battlefield here, right? And instead laying into the ethics and dilemmas of that kind of situation, rather than going back once again to the entire we must shun the 86 for the racism. Like, for instance, like perfect example of this at the very end of the episode here, right? We have this situation where we can clearly see a difference within the way they're fighting, right? The Confederacy is doing their best, and the other nations are doing their best to fight against the Legion as well. They're actually putting their own soldiers on the line, and we can see countless lives being lost. So why did they have to jam that line right at the very end? Then we must hold out a little bit longer, then those disgusting 86 will do whatever it is that they need to do, right? Like, come on, could it be even more obvious that the author is really trying to cram that kind of message into here? I don't know. I just feel like we could have had a very nice and very interesting situation as well, where for instance, the president, right? That dude, he clearly doesn't want them, right? He doesn't want the 86 to go on the battlefield, but yet since this is their choice, he has to make it. From the militaristic point of view, I've already said that I actually fully agree this is probably in the best interest of everyone to have the operation carried out in this way, and to have the Nordlichts, right, including the 86, for them to take on the effort of the commando mission. And in some cases you might say it, well, okay, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It is kind of like a suicide mission, right, to destroy the railguns, but I actually do agree with it, right? Taking all the morals and dilemmas and prosecution and discrimination and so on and so forth out of it, I do kind of feel like that is probably the only option here, right? So why couldn't they have made it into a bit more of a positive situation here, where once again you might you could still rage at the injustices that were dealt to the 86, right? The fact that they were prosecuted in the original homeland, and now even though they're here, they're still being sent onto the battlefield and put into such an unreasonable, near-death, suicidal mission, right? We can still rage and be outraged by this sort of injustice that was dealt to them. But I feel like it could have been from a different point of view, right? Like, for instance, the military brass taking full advantage of the fact that the 86 are not only very skilled fighters, but also hold their pride as a military unit. And so, instead taking advantage of that to sort of like shift the burden of moral consciousness onto them instead, and see like, hey, they're fine with all this, and this is the best situation, and sort of like comfort your own consciousness in saying, yeah, this is for the best, right? I would have enjoyed actually that kind of situation a lot more, rather than still having to go through this entire discrimination thing at the very end here. And it would also make for a better sort of how do I say this, like for instance the very last few moments of this episode where we had the armies of all the alliances moving out. They're doing their best to support this mission as well. They're literally also dying on the battlefield as well. Like, you say this is a suicide mission. What about those on the front lines who are pushing up against the Legion? Are they not also cutting into what could essentially be called suicide missions? I'm sure that probably throughout most of the battle, throughout most of the war so far, that most of the human forces have been on the defensive rather than on the offensive, right? And so there is, I still think, a distinct difference here that isn't really being acknowledged here compared to the situation within the Republic. So I guess that's my main point in all of this. Yeah, and even within this kind of situation, right, we could still have the entire scene with Federica. We could still have her outburst and her tears and whatnot. And because, don't forget, this is actually a situation that Shin has to resolve as well. The fact that he is, a little bit not quite right in the brain and whatnot in regards to his relationship with the Legion and whatnot. And so we could actually, like, just changing that, we could still keep the current storyline, but I feel like it's just, it's sort of more of an evolution of things, right? Instead of saying, oh, god damn it, we're getting into this exact same situation once again, this discrimination and whatnot. And I don't know, I just feel like we should sort of continue evolving the story, if that makes sense. So, yeah. But anyways, that is, you could argue, personal preference, and like I said, maybe the author, well, not maybe, I think the author is deliberately trying to paint the situation where it's the same wherever the 86 go, right? But, just my 2 cents on this once again. And for the rest of the episode, obviously we got that, very concerning grin by Shin at the very end there, whatever that implies and whatnot. I'm sure we'll see more into that storyline once we actually get to meet Kaiki and what. Wait, was it Kaiki? Whatever his name was, Ricky or whatnot. Federica's knight. I can't remember his name, and we haven't met him yet, right? So don't blame me on that. We'll probably resolve that entire thing later on. And I guess one final thing. I mean, I talked about the B2 already. Does it actually look similar? We don't really see the entire aircraft, so it's kind of hard for me to see if this is a direct sort of reference to it, but I would assume so, right? The shape, the design of it, the shape, its stealthy characteristics and whatnot, obviously operating from a very different kind of perspective, but still, I do wonder though, like, what. I think they never really completely talked about this, but I do wonder, like, what actually happened to the air forces of the countries. Like, has air superiority been completely achieved by the Legion and whatnot? Like, why is there no aerial support for most of these missions and so on and so forth? And I don't know, it's just something that I'm curious about, right? And yeah, I mean, interesting that we got to see a little bit more of the other weaponry that they were using and whatnot. I still find it kind of hilarious that they're, even though we're like 30-40 years into the future, their normal military technology has essentially stood still, right? Yeah, we got these mech machines and whatnot, the juggernauts and so on and so forth, but you still got your run-of-the-mill like tanks and artillery pieces and rocket launchers and so on and so forth. I do find it kind of funny in a way, and yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm kind of like a geek in that response, so I do like to look at those kind of things and also think a little bit about it and see what exactly is the situation here, how does it relate to the Legion and their advantage, the humans and their advantage. Is there a feasible way for them to really fight back? What is the power level difference and all that kind of stuff, which honestly hasn't been that important in this series so far, but no, I still like mentions and reference to it whenever we can actually see it. So yeah, I think that's it for now. Do let me know your guys' thoughts on the entire discrimination situation, the treatment of the 86 and whatnot. I did see quite a few replies already in the last episode, but hey, maybe with this episode in the bag, and we kind of can see like at near the very end here what the kind of situation that I am talking about, right? In regards to people who actually do care about the 86 within the Confederacy and whatnot, and they're saying this is actually the at least we do have a few characters that genuinely do care about them returning back, right? And from the same perspective, I would argue that probably it extends to the majority of the Confederacy as well, rather than the minority as the episodes would have us believe. So, anyways, that is it for now. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.